trace as a synonym for trail in Ameng. As far as Ameng is concerned, does trace mean just about the same as trail in break/blaze a trace? And if indeed it does, can trace be used pretty much interchangeably in every which literal sense of trail? It takes about 2 people to break a trace through the brush ahead, so only tortuous paths and blazed traces led over the Appalachians. Source.
Trace does have a meaning similar to trail. It is uncommon. Probably the most famous is the Natchez Trace from Nashville to Natchez in Mississippi, set out in the early 1800s. The implication is that a trail is more improved and used than a trace. If I make a trace and others use it, it becomes a trail. The trace is more akin to the route you took than any kind of improved path. I would not use the words interchangeably because of the rarity and this difference in meaning.
I grew up in Montana and trace is commonly understood here, and as I understand it in other mountainous areas of the US, to mean a newly cut trail unsuitable for vehicle travel of any kind. The terrain and/or vegetation prevent travel except by foot or sometimes horse.
In the American South, it is very common to have a street name use the work trace in place of the more northern trail, i.e., Ashland Trace, Wilson Trace. I believe the word traditionally refers to a trace, or trail, that follows along a creek or stream.
Mostly regional, and in the South, you're more likely to hear trace used as a path, whereas in the Midwest and North, invariably such woodland routes are referred to as trails. Both terms come from the same root in Latin, tractus, which is also the origin of track. Interestingly, track could be considered yet another similar descriptive term for a footpath.
The relevant definition of trace in Merriam-Webster's 11th Collegiate Dictionary, 2003, in the following entry is 2b. Trace n. 14c. 1 archaic, a course or path that one follows. 2a. A mark or line left by something that has passed. Also, footprint. b. A path, trail, or road made by the passage of animals, people, or vehicles. Medford Matthews, A Dictionary of Americanisms, 1951, offers this fairly detailed entry for trace in the path, trail, or road sense. Trace, in point 1. A path, trail, or road made by the passage of men or animals. 1783 in W. Fleming Travels, in the Emma, Icon, Call, Onis, 673 started in the morning, when the old trace got alarmed, several fresh horse tracks before us. 1851 S. Alton Lit. Ireri, Messenger 17571/1 The trace is growling a frequented highway. 1945 Kenny, West Virginia. Place names 23 The earliest road was the footway called trace or trail. Also, traceway, rare. 1857 Ladies Repository, April 235/2 There, pointing to what had once been a traceway that will take you down to the river. 2. Preceded by a descriptive or specifying term. 1807 in Pike, Sources, Mississippi. 2. Ap 24, we took the large Spanish beaten trace for the Arkansas River. 1870 Nowlan, Indianapolis. 14 Berry's trace crossed that of Wetzel's. 1946 Sat, Erdely, Ev, Inning, Post 3 August 81 Halves 2 days later and 11 miles east of Black Cloud Agency, they crossed the Comanche Trace. As the last term in Buffalo, Deer, Game, Indian, Natchez, Osage, River, Wagon Trace. The 1783 instance that Matthew cites comes from the entry for April 15, 1783, in Colonel William Fleming's journal in Kentucky from January 4 to April 22, 1783. Started in the morning, went the old trace, got alarmed, several fresh horse tracks before us, turned out at a spring 12 miles from Inglis to let our horses feed, were joined by J.N.O. and George May, Captain Brackenridge and 2-3 or others, likewise a party from Salt Lick Creek. Another early instance comes from Zebulon Pike, Journal of an Expedition Through the Interior of Louisiana, performed in the years 1806 and 1807, reprinted in Pike, Exploratory Travels Through the Western Territories of North America, 1811. Pike refers to the Spanish trace, as well as to the trace, multiple times in this journal, starting with entries for October 23 and 24, 1806. Thursday, 23 October. Dr. Robinson and myself, accompanied by one man, ascended the Arkansas River with an intention of searching for the Spanish trace. At the same time we dispatched Bereni and our 2 hunters to kill some buffaloes, to obtain the skins for canoes. We ascended the river about 20 miles to a large branch on the right. Just at dusk gave chase to a buffalo, and were obliged to shoot 19 balls into him before we killed him. Encamped in the Fork. Friday, October 24. We ascended the right-hand branch about 5 miles, but could not see any signs of the Spanish trace. This is not surprising, as the river bears southwest, and they no doubt kept more to the west, from the head of one branch to another. We returned, and on our way killed some prairie squirrels, prairie dogs, or wishtan wishes, and 9 large rattlesnakes, which frequent their villages. It thus appears that recorded North American use of trace to mean a path, trail, or road goes back well over 200 years. In my experience, use of the term in that sense is no longer general in U.S. English, but I would hesitate to call it archaic or obsolete, especially regionally, as in the lower Mississippi River area, where the Natchez Trace remains a famous local feature, and the middle Great Plains area, where the Osage Trace is likewise historically significant. The extent to which traces tend to be associated with trails that, as Wikipedia puts it, shadow the route of rivers is unclear, but the Natchez and Osage traces certainly follow rivers for much of their distance.
Out of the truck.